AI, particularly generative AI, is having an immediate and dramatic impact on our lives, both personally and professionally. It is already transforming lots of sectors, and with a promise of greater efficiency, we are increasingly delegating things to generative AI tools, outsourcing many tasks to handle the routine. But if asking a chatbot how to navigate bureaucracy can foster citizens' engagement, that same technology can threaten our trust in politics and have a disruptive influence on democracies. So what are we delegating to AI? How can we leverage the benefits of artificial intelligence while minimizing the risks? And how can we promote a holistic approach to ethics that involves not just technical regulation, but also a deep understanding of social, political, and ethical implications of AI? My name is Kiorri, and this is Communicating Democracy, the EuroPCom podcast on public communication. And to look into these very important questions, I'm joined by Natali Helberger, whose research over the past 5 years has focused on AI and algorithmic decision systems, with legal and governance implications, work that involves collaboration with computer scientists, industry partners, and initiatives like the Responsible Data Science Initiative. Natali also chairs the Council of Europe expert group on AI and freedom of expression, and she also advises institutions like the European Commission and UNESCO, and she is also recognized as one of the 100 brilliant women in AI ethics to follow. This is a lot, Natali, and we're very, very happy to have you on the podcast. So welcome.
Good morning. Very happy to be here.
So I will start a bit strong because we always talk about AI, and we always talk about it as it is something foreign most times. But what exactly falls under the definition of AI? Is AI only machine learning? Does it involve statistics, basic algorithms? What is it exactly?
I think this is an excellent question because it allows me to say two things. First of all, the definition of AI, there is no clear-cut golden definition of AI, which is why so many people understand different things under AI. If we go, for example, to the AI Act, it has explicitly refrained from focusing only on machine learning or only on deep learning or other technologies, but defines AI as a machine-based system that is designed to operate with different levels of autonomy, and that can adapt depending on the context in which it is deployed, and infer from the input it receives recommendations, content, predictions, and so forth. And to do this, it can use different technologies. So what you notice with this definition is it's very much focused on a machine-based system. But what I think is really important to recognize is that AI does not simply function as an isolated machine-based system. The knack about AI is that it very much interacts with the context, with the humans, with the institutions in which it's embedded. So the data we feed into it, the prompts we give it, the feedback we give it in reinforcement learning are all elements that make AI. That's why I'm thinking we need to broaden this definition from a machine-based system and include also the institutional, societal context in which the technology is employed.
All this is very interesting. We see how much we can use AI to our benefit, but how can we be sure that we can leverage all the benefits of artificial intelligence while minimizing the risks? And how much or what exactly can we delegate to AI?
So I think the European Union recently has done a lot of work in trying to set some guardrails and minimum benchmarks for making AI technology safer, particularly in areas that we consider risky. Think of use of AI in police, in education, in calculating social benefits. So I think that is part of the story. Having some clear standards and design requirements for the technology and the way it's trained and deployed. The other part that we do not talk enough about is how to make sure that the organizations and institutions in which AI is embedded are prepared for handling AI responsibly.
Right.
So do they have the necessary skills? Do they have the necessary oversight routines? Do they have the necessary procedures in place to translate very high level values like fundamental rights, transparency, diversity into concrete operational metrics? These questions matter also greatly for the question how safe or not safe AI is.
Mm-hmm. Right. And you mentioning all these very important questions, but is there like a guidebook for institutions on how to use AI, or is it up to them to decide? Because I understand that AI is something quite new being introduced in the institutions, but has there been any progress regarding on the use of it actually?
Very good question. So first of all, AI is not that new, actually. We talk a lot about it, but AI itself is around already for decades. It has more recently left the lab, and we can find it almost anywhere, from the tax authority to e-commerce website to our phones that are full of AI.
Mm-hmm.
And we see a lot that organizations right now are grappling and developing also their own guidelines, how to use AI responsibly. So, for example, I'm doing a lot of research together with media organizations and observe how they include AI. And we really see that it is a discovery process to identify what responsible use of AI is, in which situations you can use it, in which situations would users be actually fine with the media using AI and in which not. So that is a process. I think it's really important that we give sufficient time for this process. Mm-hmm. There are some guidelines. The European Commission is also working highly on standardization. At the moment, it is finalizing the a code of conduct for Gen AI providers that must inform them how to be transparent and how to do their risk assessment.
Let's turn a little bit of focus to something else, which is the citizen engagement and participation. So in what ways can digital technologies and AI, particularly in real-time data sharing, enhance both citizen engagement and policymaking by ensuring more informed and timely decisions?
Yeah, there again, it's really interesting to look towards the media and how media are experimenting with AI. And one huge opportunity that I see with AI is that it can be used to inform people better or in more effective or fun or informative ways. So, for example, I'm also one of the directors of the AI Media Democracy Lab here in Amsterdam, where researchers together with media organizations are experimenting with AI and how to use it responsibly. And we've done some research on some focus groups on fluid journalism. So journalism that is able to adapt to the interests of the user. Mm-hmm. And we know, for example, and that I found really interesting, that especially younger people and people with a migrant background would be really interested in experimenting and having these new forms of fluid journalism where the AI would present information in different styles, summaries, translation. And they indicated that this could really increase the engagement with news and even their willingness to pay. Mm-hmm. So I see a huge opportunity using the technology also to reach groups of society that the media so far has failed to reach.
Mm-hmm. But how can a bottom-up approach that includes vulnerable communities help identity and address the full spectrum of ethical, individual, collective, and societal harms posed by AI?
Yeah, and I see a real problem. So at the core of the current governance approach to AI is this risk-based approach, where we essentially asked developers of AI to identify any potential risks, and in the context of generalized systemic risks, to fundamental rights and the rights of users. And if you look at the methods they use to do so, you see that these very often are top-down methods, very expert-led, and very often not involving any users at all, which is a real problem. Because, I mean, how can you predict the impact and the risk for users, and especially vulnerable user groups that are not easily that visible? How can you protect that without involving these users? Which is why I think it's so important to develop methods of risk assessment that are participatory and that are also able to engage not the usual suspects.
And it is important to protect their basic human rights. But why is it important to complement risk-based approaches to AI regulation with a focus on promoting positive values and protecting human rights?
Because in the risk-based approach, human rights are a negative condition. You can develop AI as long as you do not hurt human rights. But human rights are also aspirational. They're an idea of the kind of society we want to live in. And to make sure that AI is really also advancing our society, we also need a positive vision of where do we want to go, what kind of values do we want to put central, and what can we do in order to realize them. And so I think the risk-based approach is a first step. But what we need much more are also, in addition, incentive-based approaches that stimulate positive experimentation with AI in a way that actually contributes to fundamental rights and societal values.
What would you say are the limitations of relying primarily on regulation, but also self-regulation in AI governance? And could a neutral third-party vetting process offer a more effective safeguard?
Well, part of the problem with the current approach is that we rely very heavily on technology providers, very large technology providers, to tell us whether the technologies are a risk to our fundamental rights or not. And I think we have to remember that these technology providers often, first of all, do not necessarily have the human rights expertise in-house that is needed to do so, but also that they are commercial, profit-driven organizations that optimize for profit. So the self-regulatory approach can easily clash with the more economic incentives of organizations. It's not necessary in the interest of these organizations to identify that their systems violate human rights. Risk assessments can be super expensive and extensive if you do them. So I feel there is a misalignment of incentives and a lack of enough enforcement capacity to overcome this divide.
So I understand that a pluralistic involvement into AI is something that may be positive, right? But why is this pluralistic approach to ethical principles essential in developing trustworthy AI systems? And how can policymakers ensure that diverse societal values are truly reflected in AI design and deployment?
Why is it important that we include diverse perspectives? Simply because AI is everywhere right now. So it's not anymore a technology that has been developed in labs and is experimented with in some innovative tech companies. It's really affecting us in all aspects of our life, from healthcare to justice, to the way we consume media, to entertainment in our personal lives. And that is why it's so important to democratize the governance of AI and include diverse perspectives in this governance, because it really affects us all. And I think we can agree that it's a transformative technology in the sense that it will transform a lot of democratic societal institutions, which is why we cannot leave this development only to tech developers, but really as a society need to be involved. How to do this? We already have quite some institutions also in the context of the European governance frameworks, where with obligations to involve stakeholders, civil society organizations, academics, and so forth. I think what we do not realize enough that in order for these institutions to play a meaningful role, we also have to strengthen them. And to take my own example, academic institutions, I think research and academic institutions play a really vital role here because we have the knowledge, expertise, and methods to, for example, do AI auditing. But coming from the Netherlands, our government just cut more than 2 billion euros in research. And there's a very strong push to only promote technology expertise and not also very important social science expertise. So it is very nice and good to say, let's involve more society and society institutions. But then we also need to put these institutions in a position to be involved.
So, Natali, thank you for joining me and explaining the importance of ethics and AI. And to our listeners, we hope you enjoyed this episode of Communicating Democracy. And if you want to discover more about the link between democracy and technology, check out our EuroPCom podcast series. And of course, if you like this episode, feel free to share it with your network. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time. This is a podcast series of the European Committee of the Regions. For more information on EuroPCom, please visit the website co.europa.eu.